Hey everyone, we're live. So sorry, we're a little bit late. So Ashley, I know we're three minutes behind here. And hi Alex, some same questions as above. Wondering if yes, you are in the right place. Please stay. And all those joining live today. Hi everyone, we're back with Closing Show Live. So we were took a little bit of a hiatus. We were back last week with Jen Marley. Fantastic. If you've missed it, just go to our LinkedIn page. It's up there. And if you got the ping, you don't know what this is. Sometimes I sign up for stuff and I'm like, what did I sign up for? But don't worry, I got you covered. The Closing Show Live is a weekly live show featuring the people of Proposify, sales stars in the trenches, and revenue leaders. Closing Show Live is hosted by me, Nadia Milani, VP of Marketing at Proposify. And every week we discuss the challenges we're facing and the absolute no BS lessons that we've learned. There's no BS in this show. We actually we'll tell you how it is, good, bad, or ugly. The Closing Show Live is brought to you by Proposify. Get consistency, control, visibility into your close, into your proposal process. Start a 14-day trial or get a demo today at proposify.com. So we have like a really amazing lineup the first 6 weeks of September. And well, I mean, every month has 4 weeks, but from September into October, we have a really great lineup. Today we have Zoe Hartsfield. I'm so happy that she's here. And I'm really happy she's here because she's not even feeling well. So there's something going around because I wasn't feeling well last week, getting better for this week. Zoe's got something, and maybe it's just like the event schedule. Everyone's at all over the place. There's a lot of conferences happening. So we're happy to have her here. Before she comes on, just wanted to do a few housekeeping items because it happens every single week. Sometimes the live will freeze. It's happening less and less. So maybe LinkedIn fixed this, which is fantastic. The live freezes. If that happens, just press pause and play again. You'll be back in. You can catch the recording at Proposify's LinkedIn page, or you can go into YouTube, search Closing Show Live. It's all there. Or go on to proposify.com under the resources section. And we're giving away some awesome prizes. So we just had a rebrand at Proposify. So, and we forgot to update our Closing Show Live logo on this Closing Show Live episode, but we will do this for next week. But we are giving away a brand new Proposify swag pack with the brand new logo. And Zoe's been really gracious. She's also giving away an amazing camera. She's going to demo what it is in just a minute. So it's a camera you can attach to your computer at home or your work from home space. It's awesome. Just to tell us what it is and how it works in just a minute. I am so happy everyone's here. Tell me where you're joining us from. I'm joining you from Toronto. Yes, Jason, you're here. Neil's here. Hi, Neil. Nice to see you. So happy to see you. Okay, let's get to it. So today's always on the show. She's from Apollo. Everyone kind of knows what Apollo is these days, I think. We use Apollo, by the way. We're a customer. Love it. To win a brand new Proposify swag pack, like we said, all you got to do is ask a question. But today we're going to be talking about just how to scale your career. So if you know Zoe, you probably do or have seen her at some point on LinkedIn. She has really scaled her sales and marketing career. So we're going to talk a little bit about how did she do that? How did she build an amazing personal brand? And how does that tie in to really being able to work wherever you want, essentially, and do whatever you want. Debatably. Feel free to debate me on that. But bring your questions, put it in the chat. Zoe, without further ado, welcome to the show. Welcome to Closing Show Live.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Zoe's here. Woo! Awesome. Hi, I always like to talk to the audience too. So Brian's here from Dallas. Alex is here from Mexico. Amazing. If you're joining us, tell us where you're joining us from. Where are you joining us from, Zoe?
Yeah, I'm just south of Denver. I'm in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Amazing. And you're not feeling well, you're under the weather. So thank you so much for doing the show. I really appreciate that. Some people just say no. They're like, you know what? I'm not doing this today. And then we have somebody else come in or we end up not doing the show. So thanks for coming. But I've heard your journey into sales / marketing. So you've done both, has been really interesting. I want to understand, how did you get into this field? I've heard that specifically tech, sales, and marketing, you've had an interesting journey. And take us to the beginning, because it's a good one.
Yeah. So once upon a time, when I was an itty bitty baby college student, I started working full time. Like I had an internship in finance, and they were just like, "Do you want to work full time?" So I was working full time while still in school, and essentially I was just like bored out of my mind in finance. And I left that job and applied to the two coolest companies in my city, which were two tech companies, FormStack and BombBomb. And I never heard back from FormStack, but BombBomb was like, yeah, let's give you an interview. And they must have just been desperate for bodies, because like I had no in at the company. I had no referral. I had no experience, but I just showed up and they were like, what experience do you have selling? And just like on the fly, I talked about my experience opening store credit cards when I worked at Banana Republic, and kind of talking about that process and like how I would identify if somebody was like a good candidate, and like product knowledge and all of this stuff. And at the end of the day, they were like, why should we hire you without, like, you don't have any experience? And I was like, if you want experience, I can't, manifest that overnight. But if you want somebody who's hungry, quick to learn, good with people, like I listed off some of my traits that were also like in the job description, that I was like, then I think I might be your girl. And then they called me later that day and made me the offer. So like I just sort of stumbled into tech sales. I actually
You sold them. You sold the role. I love that.
I guess so, but like I didn't really know it at the time. Like I would never have labeled any of my experience prior sales, and yet everybody sells all the time in all aspects of life. I sell when I'm talking to my husband. I sell when I'm trying to convince my niece that she needs to eat broccoli when I'm babysitting. Like, it's just like you're always selling in different aspects of life. So that was really fun and interesting. It was my first taste of tech sales, and it absolutely changed my life. I mean, I went from making $17 an hour to, 6 figures in a matter of 2 years. And it was just like so incredibly freeing and life-changing and empowering. And I originally was actually supposed to go to law school. Like I was still in college when I got my first full-time SDR job. And I was supposed to finish school, take a semester, study for the LSAT, take the LSAT, go to law school the following semester. And that was like the plan. It had been the plan for a very long time. And I blew off the LSAT for a final round interview at a company called Dooley, which was my next tech job. And like my first, like, not my first marketing job, but my first like true, fully, I'm just a marketer job in tech. And I haven't looked back since. And so I kind of like worked my way up through sales. I was presented with the opportunity to maybe become an AE. At the time, I didn't think I wanted to become an AE because sales was very transactional at that company. And I was like, I don't really want to just like take 8 demos a day, swipe credit cards, like do these teeny tiny deals. Like that doesn't sound interesting to me. And it was going to be another 8 months before I could move into like a business development leadership role. And so my next best option was marketing. And I like was super intentional about building relationships on the marketing team, figuring out what my gaps in my skill set were, working on those gaps, like demonstrating how much I wanted it. And then by the time the role opened up, the VP of marketing pinged me and he was like, I'm opening this rec tomorrow. I expect your resume on my desk at 8 a.m. And I was like, okay, great. So like he made the role for me effectively. And like I still went through the interview process. I still went up against a couple of other people, but because I had been so intentional and strategic about that move, it like the opportunity presented itself and I was ready when it came. And then, yeah, I've just been in marketing and I've kind of like found my way back to sort of like a salesy marketing role now at Apollo.
So a couple of things. I think that there's so many parallels between sales and marketing, specifically BDR, the BDR role. If you're inbound BDR, like there's just like so many things that I think intersect with marketing. And that's why I believe that if you are a BDR or an SDR and you want to transition to marketing, I think there's so many things that support that decision. So I love how you made that transition. But I read somewhere, and I think it was possibly on your LinkedIn, like I think you had either it was like you had some struggles before in terms of like you had gone into like a car crash even earlier.
Yes.
And then, so tell me about that, because you went through some personal challenges and were able to really rise from that. And I love.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So when I was in college, my beginning of my junior year, I was broke as hell, living in LA, also still working full time, like in school full time. It was just like a really tough grind. And I lived in Long Beach and worked in downtown LA. And so my commute was like 27 miles each way. And in LA traffic, that's like an hour and 20 minutes for anybody who's ever sat on the 405 for that length of time. And that was my life. And I just like spent 3 hours in the car pretty much every day. I was like in the office at 7, leaving at 6. And I just like sold my soul to this job that paid me $17 an hour because I thought that was like what you were supposed to do. And I would like do school in the margins and made no money. And I was so broke. Oh my gosh, I was so broke. It was like so uncomfortable. I literally lived in a walk-in closet that I sublet from my friend. And it wasn't attached to a room or anything like that, but it was large enough for my twin bed. And then if I stood next to my twin bed, if like the back of my legs was touching my twin bed, my knees were touching the door. So like that was the space that I was in. There
Basically
were
a closet. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a closet, and there were 3 built-in drawers that, like, could open 2/3 of the way because it would, like, bump up against the end of my bed, and then on top of those drawers was sort of like a shelf because it was kinda built in. That was it. I literally lived in that little, like, I don't know, 10 by 4, 10 by 3.5 foot room for a year. And I was living there. I was driving home one night after picking up some In-N-Out. Shout out In-N-Out. And a sweet old man fell asleep at the wheel and T-boned me going like 45. And I suffered a pretty bad traumatic brain injury. It knocked me unconscious briefly. I like came to in oncoming traffic. Like my car had like pivoted and drifted into oncoming traffic. A stranger was like banging on the door and I couldn't really hear. And at the time I didn't know, but I had like blown out my eardrum basically from the impact of the airbag. And so he was like yelling something at me and I like rolled down the window and he reached over and was able to like pull my e-brake because my car was literally just like drifting, you know, at like 2 miles an hour in oncoming traffic. And, you know, they like helped me. They cut the airbag away from my head. They like, you know, then they were like, I can't say. I called 911 and then they left. And I was like, what? No, like I need some help. Somebody else came by and they were like, hand me your phone. And I gave them my phone and they typed in their name and number and they were like, I can't say it, but like tell the police to call me. I saw it all happen. I can tell them what happened. And I was like, okay. And then they left too. And then the paramedics came and I went to the hospital and like all that stuff. But basically I couldn't work. I couldn't read after the accident. The impact had done something to mess up the muscles in my eyes. So I was not quite cross-eyed, but I basically like saw double for several months. And so it was like tons of physical therapy, tons of vision therapy, some memory problems. I'm almost completely deaf in my left ear. And I had to move home. And home at that time was Colorado. So I packed up my stuff, moved to Colorado, and couldn't work. And just like, I thought my life was at like the lowest point ever. I was like failing all my classes in school because I couldn't read. It was just like a really tough moment in time. And then I don't know, I just like started working and I put in the work in PT and I recovered. And right around then was when I stumbled into tech sales. And it just kind of like changed everything for me. Like I was worried at that time, even though law school was always the plan and I had made a full recovery and I was like going to go back. But there was like a moment in time where I was like, is my life over? Is like the future that I had for myself no longer accessible because I have brain damage? And at the time, the doctors were like, we're not super optimistic you're going to make a full recovery because they just like didn't know. They were like, you've got a good shot because you're young, but like, who knows? Brains are weird. And luckily I did make like pretty much a full recovery. And I think that experience gave me a lot of like, I've already been through the worst thing that I could go through. So like, what's one more person yelling at me on the phone going to do to me? You know, like there's like a little bit of resilience that comes with going through hard things. And it teaches you, not necessarily, it didn't really teach me anything about rejection, but it just taught me about like, I can put up with an uncomfortable situation for a long period of time if I know that there is something good on the other side of that. And I think that is like some of what that experience taught me and probably lended itself to my career in sales and now marketing.
I've heard so many stories like that where something so challenging like that can really help propel you to unbelievable success and growth. And part of it, it's like, if I can get through that, then I can get through anything. So, and here you are getting through that. And now you're rising. I love that. So thank you for sharing that story. It's absolutely phenomenal story. And yes, so glad you made it and so glad you're here because we're learning a lot from you. So if you don't know Zoe, go follow her on LinkedIn right now. She has an amazing, I love your content because it's so authentic, very authentic, very similar to what you just said, like just super authentic. And that comes through your personal brand. So let's talk a little bit about that because I think a lot of what you've shared, you do share on LinkedIn, but I think a lot of your success is built upon just being authentic, but also the voice that you've created. So what inspired you to start publishing and creating content and building this personal brand? Or did it kind of just happen by accident?
I was really inspired by people a little bit ahead of me in my career. So when I got the job at BombBomb, I was an inbound SDR. I know that SDR and BDR, like the terms are sometimes interchangeable at that company that represented inbound. I then moved outbound on like the pioneering outbound business development team. And we didn't have a team before us. Like we were the first ones to do it. So there was no training, there was no enablement, there was no roadmap. Nobody knew what they were doing. And so we just had a manager and we were like writing our own sequences and just sort of like go forth and try stuff. And I had nothing to go off of. And so I went to LinkedIn and started following people like Sarah Brazier and Morgan Ingram. And they, were a year or two ahead of me in their SDR career, sharing their wins and like what worked and what didn't work. And so I found my training and enablement on LinkedIn and I started learning. And one day I just sort of like decided to start writing about what I was learning and like the experiences I was having. And like a few weeks into that sort of experiment, I had gone on my very first like conference trade show, basically. And a C-suite had asked me, like, oh, what do you do? And so like me being the little SDR that could, pitched him, like I did my little elevator pitch and he was like, whoa, 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 calm down, sweetheart. Like, I don't need the whole dog and pony show. And I was just so crushed because I was like, oh, I thought you like wanted to know what I do. And it was just like kind of condescending the way that he said it. And I walked away from that experience just like frustrated. And then I went home frustrated. And then the next day at work, I was frustrated. So I wrote about it. And I wrote him an open letter and I didn't name names and I was not mean. I was just like, hey, like, dear Mr. CPO, here's why calling me sweetheart was like maybe not the best move and how you maybe could have handled that interaction differently. And it like blew up. So many people shared stories about like, I had an experience like that, or like I made that mistake once or whatever. And I just realized there was this opportunity that like, I don't have to be an expert in anything. I am an expert in my own experience. And as long as I'm sharing from like an authentic place, coming from like a point of hoping to help people or like support people or encourage people or relate to people, then I think I'm good. And so like, I didn't start creating content consistently for a while after that, but that was kind of like the first time I stumbled into it. What ended up happening is I knew a thing or two about video because we sold a video tool. And so like using video and prospecting was the thing that I started sharing about. It's like, okay, I'm not an expert at cold calling. I'm not an expert at this other thing, but I do know how to get people to respond using video messages. So I just started sharing video best practices and I would share scripts that worked for me. I would share like plays that I use, like here's how you can tell when somebody's forwarded your video, like all these different little tips and tricks. And people started hitting me up and being like, what tool do you use? Oh my gosh, wait, is BombBomb the thing that you're using? Can we talk? And so then I started like generating inbound just from like being helpful and being an authority on the problem my product solved. And that's when it like really clicked for me. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I should be doing this more. And by the time I finished as a BDR and went into marketing, I was probably generating like between 40 and 60% on a given month of my pipeline just from like inbound from social selling.
Love it. The LQO, the LinkedIn qualified opportunity.
Yeah.
It's a thing. It
Totally.
was a thing. Yeah. For a while. I mean, I don't actually have an LQO. We don't have that metric. I mean, it goes under like the MQL thing, but like,
yeah.
Well, so I love how you were doing that years ago, building that audience, but also just like building that voice, but also solving the problem for your company and building that narrative online and social media. What do you think about companies? Because like there's so many companies that don't like their employees posting on. I know that sounds bizarre because like I come from a company where Proposify, we're just like post as much as
you're encouraged. Yeah.
You're encouraged to do it, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on that for companies that are just like, I don't really want you to be publishing online?
I used to have a much stronger opinion about this, and I used to be like, it's so ridiculous. But like, I get it. I understand why people get nervous because when I post, you see Zoe from Apollo. Like I represent my company to some degree whenever I share something. And it's like scary to relinquish that control over your brand and like how you come across online. So I think I have a little bit more empathy for leaders and executives who are like nervous about it. What I will say is I do really think the benefits outweigh the risks in terms of if you hire good people who have like decent common sense, there's very little they're going to do that's like actually going to harm your brand. like, and yeah, people will make mistakes. Like I've posted something before, and my CEO at a previous organization has hit me up and been like, hey, like so and so from the board wasn't like super happy about that post. Would you consider taking it down? I'm like, yeah. Like if you work with reasonable people, it's like not going to be a huge deal. And I think if you yourself as a person creating content have a little bit of thoughtfulness, like you'll probably spot check, like, does this represent my company well? Do I feel good about like representing myself this way and representing my company this way? And if the answer is yes, then like I fire it up. It's very rare that I've seen somebody just like, I don't know, destroy a company's reputation by doing it. Usually that happens through like other random channels from just people being crazy. And those people you probably don't want at your company anyway. That said, I do empathize with like the nervousness. I also think it's totally worth the potential risk, because companies like Apollo, I mean, like we empower our employees to be active on social, and the impact it's had on like our pipeline, our qualified opportunities, our presence at events, like the inbound we get, it's just like, it's so tangible and measurable and incredible that like I couldn't imagine us not having that kind of a brand. And it's not just the Apollo brand social, which is incredible. And Medioli, our social media manager, is phenomenal at what she does. But like, it's also all the individuals. I mean, Casey Krebs, he's our senior growth operations manager. And he posted yesterday about like a play he ran with Apollo that like blew up. And now he's going to film a video about like how customers and people who are like want to try Apollo could do it themselves and post it next week. And it's like, it's educational, it's helpful, it's like being part of the community. And I think that's what you want from a brand. And I think your brand is your people. So that's sort of my 10 cents on that.
Love it. I've been totally into this conversation that I've completely forgot to remind people. If you want to win a Proposify swag pack, or you want to win a video or a camera that Zoe's using, is you might have noticed it's like following Zoe and there's like all this cool stuff happening. If you want to win that camera, all you got to do is ask a question in the comments. So please ask a question in the comments about career or about personal branding or how it all works, how to get started, whatever it is. And you can also win a prize. So wait, what's the camera though? Can you just tell me what it is?
Yeah. So this is a Lumina AI webcam. I'm trying to think if it'll like kind of follow me around here, but
It does, yeah.
It's got something called Cameraman. So it sort of will like keep you in frame, follow you around. It'll blur out the background. You can change all of these settings. You can change like the color to kind of give it the right color grading. I think it's like a pretty clear image and shot. Better than, like my FaceTime webcam on my Mac. And yeah, I've been using it for probably almost a year. I'm a big fan, and
I need it. I need that in my life.
it's just nice. It's like, it makes you look, like kind of professional. It's like you have your own personal cameraman following you around.
That's so good.
You could also turn that feature off if it's distracting. Like I don't want my camera moving around like that. Like you can turn that off.
I love it. So I need that camera. And I also need a bunch of stuff. So I have like I have an actual microphone that I'm going to be installing by next week. I have my ring light. So
nice.
But I feel like I was too over. I feel like I was blending in with the wall, so I turned it off. But anyway, enough about me. Back to the good stuff. So you're an Apollo, aren't you? You're enabling your team to post on social. There's a little bit of that as well, right? But isn't that like the secret sauce? Like if you're going to be posting online, you have to be able to enable their staff, because it's hard there's some people who love it and are good at it and they're great writers and they're just naturally almost born to do it. But then there's others who struggle. So how do you enable your teams and the people in your organization to start doing it, start publishing?
Yeah, we do it a couple different ways. So, I mean, I think it depends. Like if it's an enormous announcement, then the community team is working really hard to like help people write content. And we're trying to do like a uniform message with a uniform CTA and like unified hashtags, etc. So that's like different than just like in the day to day. Something we're starting to do is like office hours where people can come jump in and be like, hey, do an audit of my profile, like help me think about like my content pillars, like whatever. And so I do trainings, I do like individual enablement, I do like team, trainings and things like that. I also help our executives with their personal brands, help them kind of figure out like, what do we want to be known for? What is your area of expertise? What do you want to sound like? How can we like turn your last team meeting where you gave this like inspirational speech into 3 posts next month, kind of a thing. And so kind of helping guide them, building their personal brands is one way. But really, like, we just believe fundamentally at Apollo that like it's a cultural thing. Like, we want to build a culture of content creation and personal brands, not where like it, I don't know if you've noticed, but if you write up something in marketing and you hand it to 100 people and everybody posts the same thing, it like kind of goes nowhere. And that's because the LinkedIn algorithm can recognize repeat content. It flags it as plagiarism. And so it's going to throttle the reach of that content when everybody's just reposting the same marketing BS. So what we do is we try and give people frameworks, and we try and like, I'll sit down with people one-on-one. I mean, when we did our Series D announcement, I left, we were in Zoom, me and 2 other teammates, for like 4 hours of the day. And people could just pop in and be like, hey, I want to write a post about the Series D announcement. We're like, great, here's a framework. Let's edit it to sound more like you. Like, let's talk about it. And then we would kind of help them with their idea. And then we would give it to them and they'd fire it off and post it, you know? And so I think it's really like encouraging people to tell their own story. Everybody has such an incredible body of work and is an expert in their own experience. And I just happen to know a thing or two about the LinkedIn algorithm. So I think when those 2 things come together, it gives
like
people
magic.
confidence. Yeah.
The magic that happens. It's like when you did mention there's like a framework that you kind of build for your, like, the companies that you work for. Can you share? It's like,
yeah. So I guess there's a couple ways I think about it. So first, there's like your brand identity framework, and like to distill it down into its simplest form. And I'm actually recording a masterclass on this. Like, Apollo is rolling out some like really, really cool sales content. We just shot some stuff with Sam McKenna yesterday and Alex Boyd. So that's going to be coming out here in the next couple of weeks. And I'm going to be shooting a masterclass all about personal brand as like a sales rep. And I'm really excited for that to come out. But the short version of that, and then you can keep an eye out for like the really epic, long 6-part masterclass of this, is going to be a brand identity framework. So you want to know, like, what are my topics? What are my core topics? Hint, when you turn on creator mode, it's going to be the 5 hashtags at the top of your profile. Who are my core personas? I picked 2 to 3. I would recommend one of them maybe be one of your buyer personas, and one of them maybe be like you, your peers. And then 3, your tone words. What do you want to sound like? And I try and pick words that I sound like in real life. So like, I want to be sarcastic and also helpful and educational and funny, you know, or like silly or whatever, not taking myself too seriously, blah, blah, blah. So I pick my 4 to 5 tone words, and that's like the lens that all of my content gets filtered through, because I want to make sure that it sounds like me. I want to make sure I'm talking to the right people, and I want to make sure I'm hitting on the topics that I feel like I could give a TED Talk on for an hour, whether it's a good TED Talk or not. It's one that I'm excited about, because there is like a Venn diagram of the stuff that you're passionate about, the problem your prospects face, and the thing your product solves. And like that overlap is where you should spend, you know, 80% of your time. And so that's like the next step is like the content creation and the engagement piece of it. And then I have several different post type frameworks. I think I have like 11, and I in the course, I will link to like the actual resource itself, where you can go literally pull up examples of all 11 of them. But it's like a quote post, a fill in the blank post, a tell me about a time post, a story post, like whatever. So it's just like, you can look at examples of different ways. And then I basically, with those frameworks, my brand identity and my Venn diagram, you have like an infinite number of things you could write about, because maybe I'm writing about topic number 1 to persona number 2. I'm running it through all of my tone words, and I'm picking framework number 5. And that's the way that I'm telling that story today. But I could tell the exact same story on topic number 1 to persona number 3 using framework number 1. And then it's like a totally different concept, even though it's the same story, but I'm using it in a different way. And so you kind of just have this like infinite number of ways to tell your stories and to be helpful. And I find that really fun and interesting.
Love it. Alex says, I feel like I need to beg people to write and make content. And honestly, as like a marketer, I've been doing this for a while now, that's like the biggest struggle, like for marketing leaders, is to really get others to write content, and also their executive team, especially. Like that's the biggest challenge. So how do you get over that hurdle?
Yeah. So it's all about, I mean, we're selling, y'all. We're selling it to people. What's in it for them? Anytime I give any sort of LinkedIn training, I start with what's in it for you. and I go over like the wins that I've had since posting on LinkedIn, because people are like, I don't have time, I can't do this. And like, it's true, you don't have time. Like, you would have to make the time. So why is it worth the time? And then I sell it to people, and it's like, here are a couple of reasons. One, I've been able to make, I don't know, 30% of my income on the side just because I post on LinkedIn sometimes. And I haven't had to apply for my last 4 jobs. They have come to me, and I've generated my own inbound to hit 140% of quota, because 40 to 60% of my pipeline was coming in inbound to me. It's like all these different things. It's like, you're going to crush your number. You're going to build relationships with mentors. You're going to find your next job. You're going to, be visible to executives in your company. People will see you and recognize you, which makes you more available for like internal promotions. I think that there's something people really need to understand about me, and it's that I'm not very talented. Like, I'm not really that smart. I'm not better than anyone else or the next person in my role next to me. I'm just more visible. And that's why I will always get the promotion or the job or the offer or the opportunity over someone else, because they see me and they have no idea the other person exists. And so there's this idea that visibility precedes ability. And like, you want to be able to back it up. You want to be able to, back up your volume with value and like have competency. But I do think that like having that visibility has just opened so many more doors for me. And I have friends who are like, why am I not getting these opportunities? And it's like, because nobody knows you exist. And so I think you sell it to people, and you're like, this is
Our truth.
yeah, this is something you can take with you from this job to the next. As much as I would love for my entire team to work at Apollo till we all die, like, that's not going to happen. In 5 years, they'll have moved on to their next thing. And I really hope that the brand we build while they're at Apollo helps them get that next opportunity.
Amazing. We got some questions from the audience. Thank you. So if the first one's, I only see LinkedIn user for some reason. So Hunter, you're going to let me know what the name is. But when starting your sales career, what should you look for in a job? Best places to find a tech sales job?
I mean, I'm a big fan of follow the leader. So I would start on LinkedIn. I would find voices that you like following, leaders that you respect and admire at companies that seem interesting. I would then go check sources like RepView and go see, like, what is the rating of these companies? Do they pay their people well? Is their OTE even real? Like those kinds of things, like trust but verify. But I would go find like the voices that I'm inspired by. And then when their companies start hiring, it's like, hey, I want to come work for you. And I just think there's a lot of value in building relationships and being on LinkedIn, because it's going to give you that in that you may not have just cold applying other places. Cold applying is just like not the move in this market. You really need to have a little bit of like a networking edge. And so I do think like communities around sales are a great place to start. And then LinkedIn is another great place to start, and then leverage something like RepView to just like verify the culture and kind of like what's really going on behind the scenes at those companies.
Love it. Alex asks, is there a guide on social selling? So how do we get our sales team to do that and influence people in CS, for example, to also build their personal brand? How can we get everyone, even leadership, to ABC always be closing through social selling?
Yeah. Oh man, so many things about this question. Well, first of all, the guide on social selling that I would recommend for now is go check out Sam McKenna's guide. Sam Sales has an incredible social selling guide, totally worth it.
Sam.
I would buy that 100 times over. I have bought it myself, and I consider myself a good social seller, and I still got value out of it. So like, go try that. Apollo will be coming out with a social selling course here in the next couple of weeks too. Sam is like a part of that as well. So like, definitely check out her course, but we'll have some resources for you in the coming weeks as well. As far as getting leadership is where I would start. I mean, like, when you think about a cultural movement, if I can get my CRO to start posting, and my CRO is like one of our best internal brand champions at Apollo now. Like, she posts, I don't know, 2 times a week, give or take. And she's busy. She's got stuff going on, but she manages to make the time to get some of her content out there and share some of her experience and her stories. And when we got that buy-in from her, I noticed I've got reps now saying like, hey, I was thinking about writing this post. Can you give me some feedback on it? I'm like, yes, I would love to. And so I think that it's a top-down thing, just like anything else. Can you find 2 or 3 leaders, and can you give them the support? They don't have the time. So like, I'm trying to help them get 90% of the way there with their content instead of just being like, good luck, like have at it. You know, it's like, I know how to frame a post. I know how to do this. So it's like, maybe we come together and we workshop a post every once in a while or what have you, or I teach them best practices. It kind of depends on the leader, but I would start with leadership and then sell it to them of the benefits. Fun fact, this is a good stat. You can go check it. It's in Inc. magazine. I believe it is 77% of buyers will choose you over a competitor if your executive leadership team is active on social media, because there is a perceived level of like trust that comes from your executives being visible. And so just tell them that. Just be like, we're going to win more competitive deals because you're on social, and then our team will be on social, and then we can social sell. So I would just do a little bit of research about the statistics around leadership, sell it to them, and then work with them. I think that your sales team will follow suit, especially if you've got revenue leaders doing it.
Love it. So start from the top and then make your way down. Love that. Lorison asked, last question. How can LinkedIn, help generate more leads and opportunities? So do we need to keep posting content, or is it just networking behind the scenes?
It's all of the above. I mean, I think like I said, there is an overlap between what you're passionate about, what your prospect's problem is, and the problem that your product solves. And that's where you just like spend your time all day. You don't even ever have to mention your product. If you're just being helpful in that like sweet spot of the Venn diagram, people will naturally start thinking of you when a problem arises. Like I was writing about video best practices and how video was helping me get more opens and like more replies and book more meetings. Yeah. And so then business development leaders who were like, we need help booking more meetings. Maybe we should try video. Who do we know that does video? Zoe. That was like the natural path. I was just top of mind because I'd been giving away all of this advice for free. So when they were like, what tool do you recommend? I'm like, I use the tool from the company that I work for. And they're like, great, well, we'll check that out. Like they could have gone with any other tool. Like the other tools were cheaper, other tools were free, but because there was that trust, because there was that authority, because there was that expertise, and I'd been giving it away for free for months, they were like, Zoe knows a thing or two about video. I bet her team knows a thing or two about video. And I bet if we buy from them, we get even more of their expertise at our disposal. And that is true. And that's what would happen. So again, yes, create content. Yes, network behind the scenes. But I think that at the end of the day, it's not about pitching your product. It's about solving people's problems. And you don't need a product to do that. If you did, then businesses would not exist. So I would just say like, give away all your best information for free. Alex Hormozy says, give away the information, sell the implementation. And that's kind of the approach that I take.
There you have it. Thank you so much, Zoe. But before we go, we're going to give away some prizes. Hunter, you've heard me talking to Hunter, even though Hunter is not visible. But Hunter is our senior BDR extraordinaire. So he is in the background. Come join us. Let's give away the camera and a Proposify swag pack.
Right. Getting ready to spin the wheel here.
Oh, the music's starting. Yes. Finally got music. You can kind of hear it. So the first one we're giving away camera goes to Chris Vitullo.
Nice.
Look, Chris. I think Chris won something once upon a time as well. So congrats, Chris. Next,
Number 2.
Swag pack going to Kamaria. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Congrats, Kamaria. You've won the swag pack. All you got to do is we're going to comment direction and reach you on LinkedIn. So thanks so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Zoe. You've been amazing. And if you've missed the beginning of this live, just go to our Proposify page. You'll be able to see the full recording there, or go to proposify.com. See you next week. We have an amazing lineup this month and next month. So join us for next week. Thanks, everyone. Have a great Wednesday.
Thanks all.
Take
Cheers.
care.